She said it like a warning or a favor. After tonight, we each go our own way. I didn't argue. I just nodded once, then said quietly, "We'll see about later." It was almost midnight when she called. I wasn't expecting it. Our connection was too vague for that. She was the kind of person who entered and exited places like wind through a window, present, but never still. Yet there she was, voice low, trembling at the edges, asking if I could come pick her up. I didn't ask questions, just got in the car. She stood on the corner near her sister's apartment, arms crossed, not looking at me when she got in. Her cheeks were red, either from cold or something she wasn't ready to say. We drove in silence for 5, maybe 6 blocks before she said it. That line. After that, she didn't speak again. She stared out the window like she was trying to find something she'd lost out there in the dark. I drove past her building and stopped at the only place open. A diner with flickering neon lights and a coffee that tasted like burnt decisions. She raised an eyebrow but didn't object. We sat across from each other in a booth that smelled of vinyl and lemon cleaner. She wrapped her hands around the mug like it could give her something more than heat. I didn't press her. She didn't offer. After a long silence, she looked up. "I'm not someone people stay for." I didn't flinch. "I didn't come tonight to leave." She smiled then, not with her mouth but with her eyes. The kind of smile that's not happiness, just relief that someone didn't flinch when they were supposed to. She told me about her family, her mother's silence, her father's expectations, her ex who measured love in conditions. I didn't interrupt. I didn't nod excessively. I let her speak. Some stories only need a witness. When the coffee went cold and her voice grew quiet, I asked if she wanted to go home. She hesitated, then whispered, "Not yet." So we sat there, letting the clock move us forward. She pulled her sleeves over her hands, her walls halfway down. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It was just real. 2 people sitting in a booth at the edge of the night, not trying to fix anything, not pretending there wasn't damage. When I finally pulled up in front of her building, she didn't move right away. She looked at me like she wanted to believe something, but didn't trust herself to do it. "Thanks," she said. Simple, honest. I nodded. "You know how to reach me." "I won't," she replied. "We'll see," I said again. She stepped out into the cold, and I stayed there a few moments longer, engine running, watching the silhouette of her climbing the stairs, not expecting a text, not hoping, just there. Sometimes a night like that doesn't end. It just changes form. 3 days passed before I heard from her again. Just a message. Almost nothing. "Made that tea you mentioned. Didn't hate it. No emoji, no punctuation. But it was something. A small crack in the wall she'd rebuilt that night." I replied with a photo of the same tea sitting on my desk, no words attached. It became our language, things left unsaid but understood. She didn't need cheering up. She needed space that didn't echo back her fears. I gave her that. We didn't talk every day. I didn't expect her to, but when she did reach out, it was with purpose. A song she thought I might like, a quote from a book, a late night still awake, that led to an hour of silence on the phone, each of us just breathing on opposite ends. I never asked what she needed. I let her show me. One Sunday morning, I found myself walking past a bookstore and bought a copy of something she'd mentioned once, barely, like she wasn't sure I was listening. I dropped it at her building with a note. "Page 47, thought of you." No name. She'd know. That night she called, not to talk about the book, not directly, just to say she'd had a rough day and that the gesture didn't go unnoticed. That was all. But her voice was softer, less armor. I learned her rhythms slowly. The way she got quiet when something was too close to the truth, how she deflected with sarcasm when she felt unworthy of kindness. I never corrected her, just offered presence, not attention. Presence. There's a difference. She started telling me things in pieces. A friend who'd stopped calling, a cousin who said she was too intense, the way she'd rehearse conversations before having them, just to lessen the sting of rejection. I listened. Sometimes I said, "I get it." Other times just, "I'm here." I didn't make her laugh, not often. That wasn't my role, but I gave her room to stop pretending she was fine, and in return, she gave me a kind of trust I didn't take lightly. One evening, she asked what I was like in relationships. I told her the truth. Steady, not exciting. I don't chase, I stay. She went quiet for a long time, then said, "That's rare. People don't stay when I stop performing." I wanted to tell her she didn't have to earn her place with me, but I didn't. Not yet. I let her arrive at that herself. We hadn't seen each other in person since that night at the diner, but something was building anyway, quietly, like roots under frozen ground. I didn't name it. Neither did she. Still, it was there. Sometimes connection doesn't start with sparks. Sometimes it's just silence that doesn't feel empty. It was a Tuesday when she suggested lunch. Casual, like she wasn't sure I'd say yes. I didn't ask why. I just picked a place close to her work. Small, quiet, nothing that needed dressing up or down. She arrived 10 minutes late, hair tied back, eyes unreadable. She apologized, but I told her I hadn't noticed the time. That was true. We ordered sandwiches. She picked at hers more than she ate. I didn't push. She talked about the weather. A co-worker who microwaved fish in the office, the absurdity of small talk. Then, halfway through a sip of water, she said it, just like that. I always end up feeling like a placeholder, like someone's waiting for someone better, and I'm just a... In the meantime, it didn't come with a build-up, no dramatic lead-in, just a fact, laid bare in the middle of a bite neither of us took. I looked at her, not with pity, not with shock, just attention. She avoided my eyes. "Sorry," she added, almost annoyed at herself. "Didn't mean to dump that on you." "You didn't," I said. She leaned back in her chair. "I think I sabotage things before they leave me. That way, at least I'm the one who's gone first." I nodded slowly. "Does it help?" "No, but it makes the silence feel like something I chose." That stayed between us for a while. She looked out the window like she regretted everything she'd just said. I took a sip of my drink, let the moment breathe. "You don't have to explain yourself to me," I told her. "But if you ever want to, I'll listen. I won't try to fix it. I'll just stay." She didn't respond right away, but she looked at me then. Really looked. Like she was checking for signs of judgment, calculation, or exit strategies. She found none. After that, she started talking again. Not about the past this time, but about little things. Her favorite kind of rain, the smell of bookstores, her habit of humming when she's nervous. None of it was extraordinary, but the way she said it, like she was offering me pieces she didn't usually share, made it feel like more than conversation. When we stood to leave, she hesitated. "You're not trying to get something out of this?" "No," I said, "unless presence counts." That made her smile. Not wide, not loud, but real. We walked a block together before parting. No hug, no touch, just a shared pause, like neither of us wanted to break whatever had settled between us. Later that night, she sent me a photo of a bookmark she'd found. "You're not hard to love. They just didn't know how." No caption. I didn't need one. I saved the image, not because I needed proof of the moment, but because something told me she'd forget she ever shared it. And when she did, I wanted to remember for both of us. It was a Thursday when she showed up. No message, no warning. Just her, standing outside my office building with a book in her hand, and that look she wore when she was unsure if she was allowed to want something. "I was nearby," she said. "Saw this and thought of you." She held out the book like it was a peace offering, or maybe an excuse. It didn't matter. I took it, thanked her, and waited. She didn't leave. "Do you have time?" she asked. I did. I always did when it came to her, though I never let that show too much. We ended up walking, nowhere specific, just through side streets and quieter blocks, where the noise of the city thinned out and you could hear yourself think. She asked me about work, but not out of politeness. She listened, really listened, like the details of my ordinary life mattered to her, even if they weren't dramatic or complicated. I told her about a client who brought his dog to a meeting and how no one could focus. She laughed genuinely, and for a moment, something in her eased. We passed a park, one of those old, slightly worn ones with chipped benches and too many pigeons. She sat down without asking. I followed. The air was cool. She pulled her sleeves down over her hands. "Do you ever feel like you're always bracing for something to go wrong?" she asked. staring at a tree that had already begun to lose its leaves. "Sometimes," I said, "I think I live there, in that space between calm and collapse." I didn't say anything right away. Then, "What if you didn't have to?" She looked at me, not with hope, but with confusion, like she didn't know how to live without that tension, like peace was something foreign. "I wouldn't know what to do with stillness," she whispered. "Then maybe it's time to learn." We sat there, saying nothing more for a while. It wasn't uncomfortable. In fact, it was the opposite. She didn't need to perform. I didn't need to impress. We just were. Eventually, she stood. "Thanks for not asking why I really came." "You'll tell me when you're ready," I said. "Maybe I already did," she replied. She left before I could respond. Just turned and walked back the way we came, hands in her pockets and head down, like she hadn't just made something important happen between us. I looked at the book when I got home. Inside the cover, a note scribbled in her handwriting. "This reminded me of the way you see things. Quiet, but clear. No signature." She knew I'd know. I kept the book on my desk, not for decoration, just to remember that sometimes showing up unannounced means more than any declaration. It started with a text. "Do you still make that pasta with the lemon thing?" I replied. "Only on quiet nights." Her answer came 5 minutes later. "Tonight feels quiet." I told her she could come by. She didn't ask if it was okay. She just said, "Okay," like she already knew. I cleaned the kitchen in a half-hearted way, not because I wanted to impress her, but because something about her presence made me want things to feel ready, even if I wasn't sure for what. She brought nothing with her. No wine, no dessert, no flowers. Just herself. That was more than enough. She stood in the doorway for a moment like she was waiting for something to push her back. Nothing did. While I cooked, she wandered. Touched the spines of books I hadn't opened in years. Asked about the mug with the chipped handle. Noticed the photo on the fridge of my sister's kid and smiled like she'd known them her whole life. She didn't fill the space, she just fit into it. Dinner was simple. We sat close, plates between us, the sound of forks and quiet music in the background. She complimented the food and then admitted she barely tasted it. "It's just nice," she said, "not to eat alone." After we finished, she insisted on helping clean up. She rinsed the plates while I dried. There was a moment where her elbow brushed mine and neither of us moved away. It wasn't charged. It wasn't anything like that. It was just familiar, like we'd done this before in another life. She folded the dish towel without being asked, smoothed the edge like it mattered. I watched her without speaking. "You live like someone who's made peace with being alone," she said softly. "I've learned to live with quiet," I answered. "But I don't think that's the same thing." She nodded. Her eyes scanned the room again, not to judge, just to memorize. Then, without warning, she said, "You make it easy to want to stay." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. I just made tea and handed her a mug. She took it, fingers brushing mine. This time, the touch lingered. Not long. Just long enough to be noticed. We ended up on the couch. Not touching. Not crowding. She asked if I'd ever been in love. I told her I wasn't sure. That maybe I'd been close once. She nodded like she understood. "People always say they love me too soon," she whispered, like they're trying to convince themselves, or me. I didn't say I could be different. I didn't offer promises. I just said, "You don't have to earn anything here." Her breathing shifted then, slower, steadier, like something inside her had loosened. When she left that night, she looked back before walking down the steps. Just once. No words. But I saw it in her face. She wasn't planning on disappearing. That night, I left her mug on the counter. Didn't wash it. Didn't put it away. I think I just wanted proof that she'd been there, that she'd chosen my quiet over her solitude, and maybe, just maybe, that she'd choose it again. She called me late. Not quite midnight, but close enough to feel like the hour had weight. I picked up without hesitation. "Are you home?" she asked, voice low. "Yes." A pause. Then, "Can I come over?" I didn't ask why. I just said, "Door's unlocked." She arrived 10 minutes later, no makeup, hair unbrushed, sweatshirt hanging off one shoulder. Her eyes looked glassy, not from crying, but from holding it back too long. I didn't ask questions. She stepped inside like she'd done it 100 times, dropped her keys in the bowl by the door, and sat on the floor instead of the couch. I joined her. No words, just presence. She started shaking after a few minutes. Not dramatic, just a slight tremor in her hands, like something had finally given way. She pressed her palms to her face and whispered, "I hate this." I didn't ask what "this" was. I had 100 guesses, her family, the pressure, the loneliness she carried like a second skin, but none of it needed to be named. I reached out and placed my hand on hers, grounding her without pulling. She didn't move away. "I got a call from my mother," she said. "She wants me to come to something. She says I owe it to the family to show up and pretend like everything's fine. Do you want to go?" I want her to stop pretending she still knows me. She laughed once, bitter and hollow, then covered her mouth like she'd said too much. I didn't react, just waited. "I don't want to go back there," she added. "Not as the version of me they remember. You don't have to be her anymore." Her shoulders dropped like she hadn't realized how high she'd been holding them. She leaned back against the wall, knees pulled to her chest, and looked at me like I was the only solid thing in the room. I always thought if I was strong enough, I wouldn't need anyone. And now, I think I just want to not be alone in the moments I hate myself. She wasn't asking for rescue. She wasn't even asking for comfort. She just wanted to be seen and not sent away. So I sat beside her, still and steady, the way you do when someone's trying to remember what safety feels like. Eventually, she rested her head on my shoulder. No permission asked, none needed. I stayed still, not because I didn't want to move, but because I didn't want her to think I needed to. We didn't speak again that night. She fell asleep on the couch, legs curled, breath evening out. I covered her with the blanket she'd used before, not because it meant something, because it was the simplest thing I could do. In the morning, she was gone before I woke, but the blanket was folded. Her mug, hers now, was rinsed in the sink, and on the counter, a note in her handwriting. "Thanks for staying still." I stood there for a long time, holding that note, not because it surprised me, but because something about it felt permanent, like the beginning of something neither of us would rush to define, but both knew had already begun. It started happening without us noticing. Little things. Easy to overlook if you weren't paying attention. A second toothbrush in the bathroom drawer, her cardigan draped over the back of the chair, my coffee mugs rearranged. She said they made more sense that way. I didn't argue. She never called it staying over. Just said things like, "I'll head out early," or "Don't wait up." But sometimes she didn't leave, and I stopped expecting her to. I never asked if she was staying the night. I just made 2 cups of coffee in the morning instead of 1. Her cup sat untouched more often than not. She always forgot it in the rush of keys, coat, second thoughts. I started leaving it out anyway. Cold, full, waiting. Some mornings she noticed, some mornings she didn't. But it became something between us, a quiet ritual. One evening she was already in my kitchen when I got home. She had a bag of groceries on the counter and a confused look on her face. "I thought I'd cook," she said, "but I forgot half the ingredients, and now I'm just mad at myself." "Order in," I said. She hesitated. "Is that okay?" "It's always okay." We sat on the floor with takeout boxes between us. She didn't talk much, just leaned into my shoulder and picked at her food. "I never thought I'd be in something like this," she said after a while. "Like what?" "This, where nothing's being asked of me except to just be." I let the silence stretch, not heavy, just full. She looked up. "Don't you ever wonder if I'm going to leave?" "No." "Why not?" "Because you haven't." She studied my face then, like she was trying to find the catch, the part where I'd need her to say something definitive, make a promise, define us, but I didn't. I never did. "You make it hard to run," she said. "Good." Later, as we cleaned up, she stood by the sink with her hands in the soapy water and asked, "Why do you keep putting out that coffee for me?" "Because one day you'll drink it, and if I don't, then I'll keep pouring it anyway." She didn't answer. But when she left that night, her lips brushed my cheek on the way out, soft, almost unsure, but real. The next morning, her mug was gone. Not in the sink, not on the counter. I found it in the drying rack. Used, cleaned, returned. I stood there, staring at it like it had spoken. Sometimes the smallest things are the loudest. A cold cup of coffee, a washed mug, a decision made in silence and carried out without fanfare. That day, I didn't pour her a new one. I left the mug exactly where she put it, just in case she came back looking for it. She was quiet that whole week. Not gone, just quieter. Messages shorter, replies delayed. I didn't press. I've learned that people like her don't disappear to punish. They disappear to protect themselves mostly. Then on a Thursday evening, I got a message. Can I see you? Just not at your place. I met her at a parking lot behind a bookstore that was already closed. She was sitting on the hood of her car, legs drawn up, arms around her knees. She didn't look at me when I approached. I was doing fine, she said. I thought I had routines, control. You still do? No, she shook her head. You interrupted it. And now I feel things, like maybe I want more than control. I waited. I found that rushing her is like closing a door mid-sentence. She has to speak all the way through. I told myself I'd never need anyone again, she went on. That needing makes you stupid, but then you showed up and didn't ask for anything, and that scared me more than if you had. I leaned against the car beside her, not touching, just close. I don't know how to be loved without performing, she whispered, without being useful or clever or easy. You don't have to be anything, I said. You just have to be here. She turned her face toward me then. And if I'm messy, then be messy. And if I push, I won't push back, I'll stay. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but disbelief. Why? Because I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for honest. That landed somewhere deep. She looked away again, biting the inside of her cheek like she needed to hold something in. I'm scared I'll ruin it, she said. That I'll wake up one day and decide it's too much. Then I'll leave and you won't stop me. I won't, I said, because if you're going to stay, I want you to choose it fully, no halfway. She was silent for a long time. Then she slid off the hood, stood in front of me, and took a slow breath. Okay, she said, then let me stay, but not like a guest. I don't want to keep wondering if I'm allowed to exist in your world. You are, she nodded. Then I'm going to try, not perform, not protect. Just be. We didn't hug. We didn't kiss. We just stood there in the cool night air, closer than we'd ever been, more naked than skin could show. Later that night, when we sat in my apartment, her knees curled under her, my hand resting on the table between us, she looked at me and said, If I ever leave, it won't be because I wasn't seen. I answered without thinking, and if you stay, it'll be because you knew you could. She told me over breakfast, a job offer, another city, better pay, clean start. Her voice was careful, like she wasn't sure how much weight the words carried, or maybe like she already knew and didn't want to see it reflected on my face. I haven't decided, she said, not meeting my eyes. I nodded. Okay. She paused, waited, probably expecting more, questions, doubts, some emotional tug. But I didn't give her that, not because I didn't care, but because if I asked her to stay, she might think it was out of fear, not choice. It's a good opportunity, she said. Could be good for me. A reset. You don't need resetting, I answered quietly. She looked up then. Her eyes were tired, not from sleep but from the weight of possibility. I could tell she'd already had the arguments in her head, played both roles, the brave version that leaves, the scared version that stays. I used to dream about escaping, she said. Now I don't know if I'm running towards something or away again. What do you want? She opened her mouth, then closed it, shook her head. That's the thing. I don't know anymore. We didn't finish breakfast. She picked at her food, then pushed the plate aside. I poured her more coffee. She didn't touch it. Later, in the car, I drove her back to her place. Neither of us spoke. There was no music. Just the sound of the tires and what we weren't saying. When I pulled up to her building, she didn't move, just sat there, staring straight ahead. If I go, she said finally, will you wait? No, I said. Her head turned sharply. I saw the flicker of hurt before she could hide it. I won't wait, I repeated, but I won't leave either. She blinked, slowly. What does that mean? It means I'm not a place you come back to. I'm a place you stay, or you don't. I won't ask you to stay, but I also won't pretend I'm a placeholder. She looked down at her hands. That's fair. She opened the door, then hesitated. Her hand gripped the frame like she needed it to hold her up. I don't want to go, she said, but you still might. Yes, I nodded. She stepped out, then leaned back in, rested her forehead against the car door. You never tried to keep me. I'm not here to keep you. I'm here if you choose to stay. She stood there for a moment longer, then closed the door gently and walked toward her building. I didn't watch her go. I stared ahead, gripping the wheel. That night, her mug was gone from my counter. I checked without meaning to. The empty space where it always sat felt louder than anything she could have said. But I didn't text. I didn't call. I sat with the silence, knowing that sometimes the hardest kind of love is letting someone decide without tipping the scale. And if she came back, it wouldn't be because I held on. It would be because she did. The rain came suddenly that night. Not loud or angry, just steady. The kind that fills a room with quiet rhythm. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat near the window, the mug in my hands empty but warm, the air filled with the smell of water on concrete. I didn't expect her. I'd stopped expecting anything. That was never how it worked between us, but then I heard the door. No knock, just the sound of it opening, like it always had, like she still belonged here. She stepped inside, soaked at the edges, hair damp, eyes unreadable. She didn't speak. She looked around as if checking to see if everything was where she'd left it. I didn't move. I waited. She walked over, slow, her shoes making soft sounds against the floor. Then she sat beside me, close enough to feel, far enough not to assume. Her presence didn't explain anything. It didn't need to. I didn't take the job, she said. I looked at her. She was watching the rain, fingers knotted in her lap. I got to the station, she continued, had my bag, the ticket, everything, and then I sat there for over an hour, watching people leave. What changed? She shrugged. Nothing. And everything. She turned to face me then. You didn't ask me to stay. I told you I wouldn't. I know. Her voice cracked. And somehow, that's what made me want to. We sat in silence after that. No dramatic music, no final lines, just the rain, the night, and something that felt a lot like peace. I still don't have answers, she said, still scared, still messy. I don't need you fixed, I replied. She leaned her head against my shoulder. No apology, no permission asked, just the weight of someone who finally let herself rest. I don't know what comes next, she whispered. Me neither. She closed her eyes. After tonight, she said, almost smiling, each of us goes our own way. I looked at her. The same words, but softer now. Not armor, just memory. We'll see, I said. And we did. Or maybe we just sat there, letting the moment decide for us. No promises, no endings, just two people choosing the same place at the same time. For once, maybe for longer, maybe just enough.